Hey, what's up guys, DB here from Team Triple Drive. Today I'm coming to you with a whole deck discussion, so not just a deck profile, but a whole deck discussion for the Raging Abyss. Now, first part of this video is going to be just a deck profile, then I'm going to go into the matchups, explain my choices a bit more, maybe I'll explain my choices as I go through the deck anyway, but yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it because this will be a long video. So to start off, we'll play 4 copies of Revenger Phantom Blaster Abyss. This is your kind of your backup boss, but at the same time your main boss. Like, this deck plays quite strangely. You need to adapt to the way you need to adapt to the game, really. Whatever the matchup demands, that's how you adapt to it. Then play for Raging Form. This card is what keeps this deck in 1.5 in my opinion. I think Pure Abyss is really tier 2 at this point, but Raging Form having that speed that the deck can do is something that I think honestly saves the deck a lot. So that's for the grade 3s. Then for the grade 2s we play 4 Blastodark Revenger Abyss. He's very strong because he allows you to snipe starters, and in some matchups it'll be crucial for you to be able to keep going. So very good card. Now I'll talk about matchups a bit later and you'll see why this card is really good in certain cases. So carrying on, we play 4 mana. Mana helps us fetch grade 1s, which help us fetch whatever we need or just generally become our combo pieces. So we play her at 4 to maximize the chance of us getting the things we need. Followed up our last grade 2 is Dark Bless Angel. Also a 4 off because we need her for the double restand combo. We maximize her for that reason. She's also quite good sometimes if you just want to have more board for later turns. So yeah, as we play 4. Next up, for the grade 1s, we play 4 Calm Collectors. Now, a lot of people in Raging Abyss play the Revenger Perfect Guard. I did test that for the longest time and I hated it because, well, I say hated it, right? The problem with it was the deck bricked so hard when you ran out of Counterblast. There was no on-flip engine whatsoever, so this is your on-flip engine. This is like the only thing that can actually physically unflip in this deck, because we don't have the Blastodark Dorient combo, Blastodark Revenger Dorient combo. We do not have the Abyss Summoner like Claret has, we do not have Kaiden Hoyle combo like Diablo has, or Dorint and Colossus, though, you know, the grade 2 and the grade 1 versions. So we are literally relying on heal triggers without this, and this gives us another way to countercharge, get more counterblast for future plays, future turns. Then we play 4 Finnegas. This is your Limbrick Enabler, again combo piece, we maximize it, we try to get into our hand for the Raging Form double restand. Same goes for this, more. Very good card, allows us to fetch our Raging Forms. Honestly, even if you only have 1 in hand, there is a combo where you can still do a double restand, which is quite insane. So even if you have just like the ride in hand, if you have enough counterblast and the right cards, you can still do the double restand, which is really good. To finish off the grade 1s, we'll play 1 of the Dark Heart Trumpeter. This spot is usually taken by Soulbreaker for most people. The reason this is not Soulbreaker for me is I think Soulbreaker is dead. Like, the deck drive checks so much pre-gen break, pre-superior calling non-revenges that it sort of dies. Because as soon as you drive check it, that's it. It's a dead 6k non-revenger. Dark Bless, true. You can't use it until Gem Break, you have to have a Blaster Vanguard, etc. However, it is not dead once you draw it. On call, you can still use its ability as long as you meet the conditions, even if it's from hand. So it's a very good card for that reason. It extends your play during the stride turns. It's essential really in a mirror match, to be honest. So very good card. I used to play Soulbreak as well, didn't like it. That's why I switched to Dark Heart. The deck flows much nicer now. Now for the zeros, I'll play Judge Bow. As much as I love David, and as much as I love getting Aura Geyser off, this is basically a free Revenger sack for Raging Form. Less cards from hand, means you have more to defend yourself with and then try and go for the kill the next turn. Its skill is also pretty good if you do miss your ride and you go into Phantom, so just generally this is the best option. For the triggers, play 4 of the heal triggers, self-explanatory. Then we play 12 criticals, because I did play draws. Draws were nice. I did enjoy draws for the fact that you got bigger hand, you had more units, like you had more chance to get to your combo pieces with the draw triggers. Statistically you had more chance, but the problem was when I did have my combo pieces and I was doing the triple attack with the Vanguard, I wanted every drive check to check a critical trigger. Like, okay, even if it was a heal, it's not so bad. It's a G Guardian, it's a 15k or potentially 25k or whatever guard. But a draw trigger was just a 5k that gets me either another 5k or a 10k. And if it's 10k, it's getting me a trigger, so I'm losing another trigger from hand. And it's not dealing extra damage. Crits do extra damage, it's more push, it's more kill your opponent very, very fast. This deck really tries to kill your opponent dead, you know? If any of you played Destiny, you would get the reference. RIP Destiny. Oh, it was such a good game. Anyway, moving on to the Stride Zone. We play 2 Spectrals. Spectral is a very good card. It's a restander. Honestly, you just see what the matchup demands. The nice thing about this deck, right? You can have a restand for no counterblast, but it does less pressure than any of the other ones. You can have counterblast 2, sack 3, restand, but before that you return 4 cards to the deck, which could be 4 triggers or 3 triggers and Legion Mate. Or you can have the Stride, which is Soul Blast 1, retire something before the attack, and then counterblast 2, sack 2, restand, lose 2 drives. So this card, the benefits of this is it's 5k higher than your Legion, oh sorry, it's 4k higher than your Legion attack, so it'll require 5k extra guard. If you have only 2 rear guard circles available for you, this can still restand while the others can't. And there's benefits to basically each of them, and you see what the situation demands, and that's why we play 2 of it. Most of the time we only go into 1 or maybe 0 even, but 2 is there just in case, for those dark times. Then we'll play 4 of the best right in the game. Phantom Blaster, Diablo. The reason this is the best right in the game is just the versatility of it. It can make your opponent just die because they are playing a deck that has invisible field. So instant win because of that. It can make your opponent die because they just draw crap, and if they just blurt it out, they don't have enough guard for your other Swains. If they don't, they die to this. And it's just generally also Counterblast 1 Persona Flip just to get 10k crit. That's really good. That's really, really low cost for that kind of ability. Even as a solo Vanguard play, just when he's on its own, no rear guards, just 36k with a crit for Counterblast 1 Persona Flip is not a bad cost, you know, it's a very, very good card, very versatile. Carrying on, we play 3 Aurageyser Dragons and 1 Doomed. I started to like Doomed a lot more recently, because there's some matchups where you just want to go Doomed to snipe things, and it's just very, very good for that reason. Aurageyser is very nice to convert field to hand, and sometimes you can plus with that if you have something like Mana or Dark Heart Trumpeter, or like, I don't know, I think that's it, to be honest. Yeah, that's it. But yeah, very good card. Just helps you get hand, survive longer. Then play 1 Grim Recruiter. On hit you can do some funny things if you're on Phantom and you have Judge Bow. You can turn basically 1 rear guard, which would be Judge Bow, to having 4 rear guards, which is just really, really good. That uses the Dark Heart Trumpeter and Judge Bow's ability, and obviously its own ability, so you can plus a hell of a lot with him. And he's also pressure, so quite often he'll just force out a perfect guard, which is nice, considering he doesn't really do anything. Or at least a G Guardian. 1 Madhu. Madhu is your kind of mid-game stride, late-game stride. If you're just sitting on Phantom, you don't really have a play. If you're on Legion, sitting on the Legion. So you stride, you get the card back to hand and you just have a free stride, really. That's what it's there for if something is going wrong and you're playing well into the late game and you have nothing else to do. For the G-Guards, we'll play 2 Ludwig. Ludwig is kind of bad, but recent events made me quite like him for the reason that you can just move him out of, move rear guards out of the way. And I don't mean like unhittable, I mean you just remove them. That's sometimes quite good, especially against Dauntless Legend, which is something that I still really like about him. I would cut him down to 1 and increase this to 2 if I had another one, but I don't, which is kind of weird because I used to have like 10. But yeah, this is a very good card. This is just a 25k G-Guardian when you discard a card. Sometimes in a mirror match this can save your ass like really well, I don't know. Dismal is quite good as well. This is mainly your Laurel matchups, your Cross matchups, your maybe Legend if you really want to save a rear guard. So yeah, but Legend tends to just kill your rear guards now. They don't actually tend to use Legend that much. Unless you're playing the kind of beat down version. So yeah. Now I want to talk about the matchups for this deck. This deck is very interesting and I'll explain why I think it's in tier 1.5. The deck's speed is insane. Like, this is the fastest Shadow Paladin deck out there. For that reason alone, it is sticking in the 1.5 slot. Now, you can argue that there are other Shadow Paladin decks in the same area. A lot of people like to argue that Pure Abyss is. I disagree. I think Pure Abyss is kind of trash. I think it's going in about tier 2. Probably mid tier 2 to low tier 2 even. So, I don't think it's very good. Then we have Diablo. Diablo divides into 2 different builds as well. We have the Death Spray build and we have the Voltima Diablo, Voltima Blast the Dark build. The Death Spray build will probably be around tier 1.5 to tier 1 because of the, even though it's a one-trick pony where you just try and kill them with the Yukon God ability, at the same time it is a very powerful ability, so yeah, it's kind of good. It's kind of a good build. The Voltima Blasted Dark is, I would say, tier 1 because it can still perform the whole Con God thing if your opponent is bad. But at the same time, it has very explosive potential. So what the Death Spray build kind of lacks is, well, actually, Death Spray build can have that as well, but you minus a lot more. While in the Voltima Diablo, you do the same thing, but you don't minus, you plus instead. So the Voltima Diablo, it has very explosive power because we have Kaiden, which you retire, you cycle them for more Kaidens, you retire those, and you just swing for huge numbers, which is great. With both Spectral and Phantom, it is very important. Something that Clara deck doesn't have. The Clara deck can go for 36k with boost for Spectral. That is the max that it goes, really. And that's the problem with it. Clara is super consistent. It is the most consistent deck out of the Shadow Paladin builds, but it is at the same time the least explosive, so it becomes a grinding game. It becomes, you really need to know your shit with Clara. You really need to know every matchup. You really need to know your battles. Not to say that this deck doesn't need to know some matchups, but this is much more straightforward. You do double restand, you go Phantom, you do another restand, you stride Phantom, you just kill them. It is so much more autopilot than Claret. Claret, you need to really think every single move that you do, especially in current meta. Which is why sadly I think Claret now is going down to tier 2. RIP. As for general matchups, I'm just gonna put pretties out here so you can look at them. I'm gonna go now through each clan and say what matchup is good for this deck, which one isn't. So first, United Sanctuary, Royal Paladin. This has a good matchup against Royal Paladin, it just does. Oracle Think Tank. Also, Oracle Think Tanks are kind of shit at the moment, so this deck has a good matchup. You do need to know how to play against witches, otherwise they'll surprise you and you're like, what? Well, okay then. But generally, this deck beats Oracle Think Tank because the speed of this deck is really, really good. And the multitude of attacks. So you'd be down, even if they have a bunch of 10k shields, you'll be swinging for like 5k to guard, and they'll be like, oh, I'll have to use 10k, so you're still minusing them in that regard, so it's really good. Shadow Paladin. Now, right, Shadow Paladin is a very hard matchup for this deck, because Diablo beats you, Claret beats you, Persona fights at the same time. Abyss has an edge over you, even though you're the better deck, because they only retire 3 max at any point, while you try to go, sometimes retire the whole field. But you need to really know your matchup. You need to play each of those matchups a lot. The Deathspray build fucks you up. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. Diablo, Clara Diablo, and Raging Abyss / Abyss, you need to learn the matchup. You need to not make stupid mistakes. It really becomes a stride battle at that point. In a mirror match, your strides are going to be the thing that decides. So arguably, it's whoever strides first wins, but at the same time, it's whoever the good player wins, really. So, yes. Next up, Gold Paladin. Gold Paladin is kind of a trashy matchup for this deck. Simple fact, you can superior guard with Gurgreed. If you're playing against Liberators, well, we're talking about meta here, right? So, yeah. Gurgreed is going to screw this deck over, especially with Glorious Strain. When that comes out, this deck is going to have a hell time against that, so Gold Paladin's a trash matchup. Angel Feather. Angel Feather is a hit and miss. If you're playing against No Seal, it's more of a miss than if you're playing against Gavriel. Against Gavriel, you can outspeed them quite a bit, but at the same time, if they get all their Broken Hearts set up, and they start doing the whole increase in the Vanguard's power, this deck loses to it as well. Genesis. This deck beats Genesis. Enough said. Like, Genesis is not a hard matchup for this deck. Kagero. This deck loses to Kagero because if it's... well, it loses to Overlord, right? It doesn't give a shit about Blade Master. Blade Master can do whatever the hell it wants. It will beat Blade Master. Overlord has Defeat Flare. That single card, even though I don't think Defeat Flare is generally as good as everybody hypes it up to be at the beginning of set 7, Defeat Flare in this case is very, very strong because it just wipes 3 units. And that's before you can do any of your restand. So immediately, you only have 2 cards to kill, which means you have to rely on the Spectrals. Or Phantom. Basically, again, you rely on your strides. Even then, they have something like Denial Griffin, which is like, wow, thanks, great. And Hand Trap really kills this deck. Narukami is an okay-ish matchup. Again, if you're playing against Vanquisher, you generally outspeed them. I mean, obviously, if any deck gets super lucky with triggers, you'll die. But in general terms, this deck should be able to outspeed Vanquisher's huge numbers. Against Brawlers, it's easy game because you kill your own units. They do not have any targets to punch, so at all points you'll have an empty field, and the only thing they have against you is Conquest, which is survivable if you play the matchup right. Tachikaze is really not a threat. Again, if somebody's playing the Gaia Emperor, like quadruple Vanguard swing, whatever it is, quadruple, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, no, triple Vanguard swing. Okay, even then, you just need to take damage at the right time, guard at the right time, etc. But yeah, it's not that hard of a matchup. Murakumo, honestly, I don't know. I haven't practiced against enough, but I've played against it with other decks, and I don't see Shadow Paladins, like mechanically wise, struggling against it. It is faster than Murakumo. It punches harder in many cases, so personally I don't think Murakumo is that much of a problem. Nubatama can screw you over. Like, a good Nubatama player will wreck face so much and you will die. Yeah, don't underestimate Nubatama. Potentially you can outspeed them as well with Raging Form. What I really like about this deck, the argument with this deck against any deck is you can potentially outspeed them. Maybe not Ripples. Ripples probably will outspeed you and you're fucked. But with like pretty much any deck, any bad matchup, there's the potential that you will simply kill them quick enough, but it doesn't happen often. So you need to have really good setup here for Nubatama. Spike Bros. Just learn your matchup. It is not that bad. You take the early swings you actually want to take, because then you do multiple swings. They don't have enough hand to deal with your multiple swings. Like, they're like, yeah, we'll rush you down, but then they can't take the rush back, so they die. So you win Spike Brothers because of that. Dark Irregulars can be a bitch, not gonna lie. Gilderay is an asshole. Shaharot, however you say it, Charlotte, whatever. That guy's an ass as well because he stops Sentinels. And he also, well, actually their Titan doesn't really matter for us. But he stops Sentinels as well. The crappiest matchup for this deck out of the Dark Irregulars is Amon. Because what Amon will do is he will force you to use your Blaster Dark, which means if you don't have everything in your hand for the double restand, you will need to have much higher damage. Like, if you have the combo to fetch everything you need, that takes you 3 Counter Blast. The Blaster Dark will take you 1 Counter Blast, so you'll need to have 4 Counter Blasts available. Because Balmy Grace will really give them such a high advantage that you need to remove her. And often removing her does give you the edge, but at the same time it does slow down the deck, and if they have another one in hand early enough, or I guess at the right time more like, they can go Gilderay, call that Balmy Grace, which they saved. They'll have like 15k and 15 cards in soul, use her ability to give the Vanguard plus 15k as well, and you just like sitting there, well shit, I'm dead. And then they double crit you anyway because they run 12 crits. Pale Moon. Pale Moon is a very nice matchup for us because they have Invisible Field. Harry dies to this deck. Easy game. What other shit do we have? Nightmare Dolls are okay as well. They're generally not that strong, so you can beat Nightmare Dolls as well. You gotta be careful with the whole Alice stuff, but yeah. Gear Chronicle. Gear Chronicle kills every deck, so at this point, there's not much to say. Without the TikTok worker thing, it's okay. We can actually deal with it, sort of, because Gear Chronicle spins things, we retire our own stuff, so we don't really care. But with the TikTok worker Metallica Phoenix combos at the moment, Gear Chronicle just destroys every deck, so yeah. Grand Blue is a decent matchup for this deck because Nitros generally has more of an invisible field, although they'll obviously keep stuff on the field for the Phantom Swing. But it's an okay thing because 7Cs they might have some early game, but so do you. And if they don't have their cutlasses to refill their hand after calling shit, then you're gonna have a good time. If they do, well, you might struggle in that case. So Grand Blue is sort of a hit and miss for this deck, honestly. Bermuda Triangle. This can be a tough matchup as well. Generally, they bounce everything, but they can be fast. Like, they can be really fast. The nice thing about the Bermuda Triangle matchup is they have a G-Guardian that requires them to call from hand, and if you phantom them and they cannot guard from hand, they cannot call it with the G-Guardian skill. So that G-Guardian is sort of dead for them. Sorry, the camera cut out. I'm not sure what point we got to. I'm just gonna assume that we've done Aquaforce. Basically, if we haven't, Aquaforce generally good because you have early game as well. They can outspeed you potentially with a rush, so it can be a hit and miss. Mega Colony is very decent matchup for you because they have Tyrannus and Darkface, but they can only go into either one or the other. And yeah, so you need to know how to play against Mega Colony. It is not that hard because a lot of Mega Colony players give themselves too much credit. They're like, oh, we can stop it from doing stuff. I'm like, yeah, but I can stop you from stopping me doing stuff. You know, I can play around both Optyrannus and Darkface in one go, and then whichever one you go into, the other one, the fact that you can't do both will be your demise. I can outplay that. So unless they go triple turn Optyrannus, which is something that's the only way they can really get the advantage over you, you're fine. Even if they do, you commit board early. That's what you do. Then they stun you with Darkface. Cool. You just retire your non-stun, not stun, you know what I mean, like, can't be targeted by effects. You commit more board and do your restands. They go up to Randers, you go, cool. I go something like, I don't know, Aura Guys at that point. So you can keep doing stuff during each turn. Mech Colony players think that they're a lot better than they are against Shadow Paladins. Like, they think they're in a very, very good spot. Now granted, against, I don't know, like Diablo maybe, they would have a good time. But this deck just has restands all the time. And the fact that they draw will get pummeled down upon. And they don't have early game. Machine can screw you over because they have Destroyer, but at the same time you have more. More can search you for your grade 3 to rewrite constantly as well. So in that point you have a decent matchup against it, because most other decks don't have a constant grade 3 searcher. So generally you have a good matchup against Mech Colony. That's all I can say. Let's see. Great Nature. Oh, I hate Great Nature so much. If they go off, you're screwed. Like, that's all I can say. Generally, my friend who plays the Great Nature deck, I was playing Diablo against him, and he said that my deck has good matchup against this. I personally disagree, because yes, Great Nature focuses on retiring their own shit to a certain extent, but they stack it all onto one or two units, which is not a big deal. So all you do is commit board, and you're like, okay, well, I can't phantom you because I won't do stuff. I need to try and get through your hand. They can draw like 6 cards in one go. They have Big Belly, which wins huge columns. They have freaking, what's it called? The Tiger, Guru Tiger. Is it Guru Tiger? The one with the freestand stuff. I think it's Guru Tiger. When it's boosted, Counterblast 1, restand something, get plus 4k, I think. They have that. They run stand triggers. They constantly pummel your face in. So Great Nature generally has the better matchup against this deck. Neo Nectar. Okay, this is also an interesting one. Neo Nectars have this turn where they bounce everything. So if you stride first, you're gonna have the better time, because you go stride, you do whatever stuff you need, you enable your gen break, you have a card face up in the G zone now. They go stride, they bounce half of their shit back to hand, you go cool, Phantom Blaster. If you don't, you're gonna have a bad time, because they will just pummel your face in with huge numbers. Now you can also outspeed Neo Nectar, which is also very nice with Raging Form, so that's also quite good. So you do have answers to Neo Nectar, but you need to play the matchup very, very carefully and hope that you get enough cards to make moves, to make plays. Nova Grappler. It can be a bad matchup. Honestly, it really, really can. There's not much you can do against Nova Grapplers, to be honest. I'm just trying to think the best move against Novas. Hope you kill them before they hit second stride, really? Probably? Because once they hit second stride, they're winning. Honestly. Victor Novas, that is. These deities can be a bitch as well, because they have early game, and they have early game since grade 2, very good early game since grade 2, and then as soon as they hit grade 3, they have potentially early game with Extreme and the Limb Break Enabler. So yeah, Novas are not a good matchup for this deck. Dimension Police. It's okay because you're very fast with this deck. If the D-Police opens nuts, they can potentially outhand you with Cosmic Heroes. Daikaiser is a butt clencher for any deck, but it's so luck based that it's kind of compensational for that. Also, Daikaiser doesn't get ridiculous hands unless they get the Laurel hit, so you should be able to beat Daikaiser unless they get very, very lucky. Metalborgs, again, you should be faster than Metalborgs, you should be fine in that regard. And final clan is... what the hell? Okay, yeah. Link Joker. Link Joker is a good matchup for this deck. Why? Because you tie your own shit. Even against Chaos Universe, the max they can make you have the locked on the board is 2, which means you still have a bunch of restanders that are live at all points, you still have Phantom which is live at all points. You are basically an anti-Link Joker deck, which is beautiful because Link Joker is shit. And that's coming from a guy who owns Link Joker now. Alright, so the last deck that I guess we might want to talk about is Token Rambu. and you win because it's trash. So it's cool. Now I hope I went through all matchups. My camera just decided to turn off after I talked for like more than 20 minutes, so rip me. But apart from that, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this deck profile and discussion and more or less in-depth explanation for each of your matchups. Honestly, if I had to pick the worst matchup of all of them, it has to be Overlord, because Overlord, what it does is just not make you able to do your own shit, which is what Link Joker tries to do, but against this deck it fails. But Overlord can go, hi, retire your shit before you retire your own shit. Yeah, like, okay, thanks. So, yeah. But that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed this deck profile. I will see you in the next one. This has been DP from Team Triple Drive, signing out.